Published by Vertigo, Sweet Tooth is a post-apocalyptic comic book written and illustrated by Jeff Lemire. It focuses on Gus, a human-deer hybrid, and his journey across a pandemic-ravaged Earth. Sound familiar? On his way, he discovers others like him, hybrid children that are part human and part animal. Eventually, other humans and human factions try to capture him and harness the reason why the hybrids are immune to the pandemic, which threatens to kill every human that's still alive. Throughout the series, concepts of friendship, family, and survival are explored, specifically Gus's kindness versus human depravity and cruelty. So after a recent reread, I decided to put together a bit of a list of other comic book series out there that blend that post-apocalyptic storytelling mixed with fantasy creatures, or just other comics that have that similar Sweet Tooth vibe. So here we go. First up is Coda. Now, Coda is a post-apocalyptic fantasy comic book series that was published by Boom Studios, written by Simon Spurrier and illustrated by Matthias Bergara. It follows Hum, a former bard turned wanderer, on a quest to find his missing wife Circa, a fierce Urkin warrior. As he traverses a wasteland full of strange creatures and magicless chaos, Hum's journey is equal parts darkly humorous and emotionally charged. So Coda blends epic world building with personal stakes, exploring love, loss, and survival in a beautifully bleak, transformed world. It's a compelling ride from start to finish. So yeah, go check that out if you enjoy magic fantasy worlds. So next up we have The Wilds, which is a post-apocalyptic comic book written by Vita Ayala and illustrated by Emily Pearson. The Wilds explores a world ravaged by a deadly plague, so the story follows Daisy Walker, a runner who works for the Compound, a settlement that survives through scavenging and smuggling in the ruins of civilization. When Daisy's lover, Heather, goes missing, she sets out on a dangerous journey beyond the safety of the Compound's walls. Along the way, Daisy discovers the brutal truths of this new world while trying to survive and uncover Heather's fate. It has a mix of suspense and emotional depth, and it also has stunning artwork. So The Wilds is this intense, haunting dive into survival and human connection in a broken world. Next up, we have the Underwater Welder. Now this, like Sweet Tooth, is also created by Jeff Lemire, and it's this ghost story graphic novel which blends sci-fi and heart with a splash of the supernatural. The Underwater Welder follows Jack Joseph, a tough offshore oil rig worker who's about to become a dad. But things take a surreal turn when, during a routine underwater dive, Jack encounters a strange force that links him to the ghost of his late father. This unexpected twist sends Jack on a journey of self-discovery, family bonding, and a little bit of supernatural mystery. It has this unique mix of deep emotions, underwater thrills, and cosmic surprises. The Underwater Welder is very much a captivating ride through the heart and mind, and you could arguably give this graphic novel to a teenager with no issues. So next up we have We 3, which is a sci-fi comic book written by Grant Morrison, illustrated by Frank Quitely, and published by Vertigo. Now it's this heart-wrenching, action-packed 3-issue comic book series that takes you on a wild ride with 3 household pets, who are Bandit the dog, Tinker the cat, and Pirate the rabbit, who are transformed into ruthless cybernetic weapons by a shadowy government project. However, when the project is shut down, the trio escapes, desperate for freedom and a chance to live their lives again. So what follows is a brutal journey filled with fierce action and deep emotional resonance, as the comic book grapples with the ethics of animal experimentation and the unbreakable bond between creatures and their humanity. It's this raw, poignant reflection on life, freedom, and ultimately what it means to be human. So next up we have Little Bird, and this one is published by Image Comics, and it's a comic book series with a dystopian feel, written by Darcy Van Polgeest, illustrated by Ian Bertram, and it follows Little Bird, a fierce young woman on a mission to rescue her grandfather, called the Axe, who is a mutant imprisoned by the Empire. As she journeys through a dangerous world filled with genetic experiments and oppressive rule, she must confront not only the Empire, but also the deep-rooted tensions between indigenous cultures and colonization. It's this visually arresting exploration of resistance, identity, and survival, though its complex narrative and ambiguous twists may leave some readers questioning the bigger picture of the world of Little Bird. So next up we have Hinterkind, which is this post-apocalyptic fantasy written by Ian Edginton and art by Francesco Trifogli, and this is also a Vertigo Comics comic book. The series is based in a world where humanity has been almost entirely wiped out by a mysterious plague. So civilization has crumbled and nature has reclaimed the cities. And in this new wilderness, mythical creatures, who are referred to as the Hinterkind, have resurfaced. With the majority of humanity almost extinct, these creatures of myth, legend, and fairy tales now dominate the earth. Hinterkind begins in a human settlement where its small population are struggling to survive. The characters Prosper and Angus embark on a journey to find Prosper's missing grandfather, venturing into the wild, Hinterkind-dominated world. As they travel, they uncover the truth about the plague that wiped out human civilization, Angus's heritage as a Fae, and the power struggles that exist within the Hinterkind government. Although it's this fantasy element constantly at play in this series, Hinterkind is very much a dystopian story at heart that tackles issues of mythology, environmentalism, and the science versus nature debate. So next up I chose Oblivion Song, which is a sci-fi comic book series written by Robert Kirkman and illustrated by Lorenzo De Felici. It's set 10 years after a catastrophic event called the Transference, which causes a portion of Philadelphia and its inhabitants to swap places with an alien dimension called Oblivion. The crux of the story follows Nathan Cole, a scientist who becomes obsessed with finding the inhabitants, namely his brother, who got caught in the transference. He's so obsessed that he creates a device which allows him to teleport between Oblivion and Earth at the risk of his own life, which brings forth themes of loss, survivor's guilt, and trauma as Nathan, his brother, and their loved ones come to grips with moving forward despite what has happened to them. Now, as the series progresses, it gets revealed what Oblivion is and who the mysterious faceless aliens are that inhabit Oblivion, resulting in a huge conflict between the aliens and humankind. And the idea of what the ultimate sacrifice is truly tested in this comic book series. Next up is Animosity, which is published by Aftershock, or I should say was published by Aftershock since they're no longer a company anymore. Now, Animosity is a dystopian comic book written by Marguerite Bennett and illustrated by Raphael de la Tour. And the story of Animosity depicts an event known as the Wake, in which every animal on Earth suddenly becomes self-aware, and during the resulting chaos it becomes clear that while the animals can talk, they have also gained human-level intelligence. The result of Animosity follows these newly intelligent animals as they fight humanity and fight each other for their own lives in the pursuit of peace and happiness. 1 year after the Wake, an 11-year-old girl and her dog Sandor begin this cross-country journey to California, where Jesse's half-brother Adam North, her only surviving family member, lives. So during this cross-country adventure, they faced many foes, human and animal alike. Next up is Low, which is an epic post-apocalyptic sci-fi comic book written by Rick Remender and art by Greg Ticini and published by Image. The series is set billions of years in the future after the start of the sun's expansion into a red giant has left the surface of Earth uninhabitable. The story of Low focuses on survivors who live in the underwater city of Salus, specifically the Kane family, and the pirate enemies of Salus. The main character, Stell Kane, is forever hopeful in finding a new home for humanity and embarks on a quest for a probe which she believes will point them in the direction of a new home. So it's a bit like 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea if it were a post-apocalyptic comic book filled with political intrigue and everyone's favourite bad guy, pirates. Next we have Savage Highway, a brutal post-apocalyptic comic written by Matthew Masmondet and art by Zhang Xiaoyu, which was published by Humanoids, when, again, another defunct company. And it's a tale of two opposites who are forced to unite to survive in a violent post-cataclysmic world in which an ancient highway spans the wasteland and its cracked surface has become a route for the anarchic hunters and marauders who dwell in this barren future Earth. Along the highway, Helene, an educated young woman on a grave mission to save her sister, encounters Mo, a solitary hunter, and Jin, an Asian warrior. Together, they begin a legendary journey to a Paris in ruins, where a new social order is being forged. This one clocks in at only 3 issues, and it's a great, grim, dark, post-apocalyptic tale to absorb on a quiet afternoon. Speaking of post-apocalyptic, the next one we have is Y the Last Man, which was published by Vertigo and written by Brian K. Vaughan and art by Pierre Guerra. And it follows a mysterious plague which instantaneously wipes out every living mammal with a Y chromosome except for one man, Yorick Brown, and his pet monkey, Ampersand. The series focuses on Yorick, Ampersand, Agent 355, and Dr. Alison Mann, who embark on a quest to find a cure to the plague, and Yorick's lost fiancée, Beth, which has killed every man on the planet. Along the way, Yorick and his friends encounter many obstacles and factions looking to stop them, including a militant feminist group calling themselves the Amazons, who believe the plague is a blessing, and the Israeli army, who want to use Yorick for their own plans. So along the way, there's lots of clues to the origins of the plague and rumours leading to the end of this series, which will shock you and leave you in an emotional mess. Next up, we have Fables, which is a fairy tale fantasy comic book series created by Bill Willingham. And it reimagines classic fairy tale characters where they're exiled from their magical homelands, so they take refuge in New York City, living in secret in a community called Fabletown. Whereas non-human fables take refuge in a place called The Farm, which is a remote sanctuary. And it follows the story of Fablekind and their exile from their homes by a mysterious and powerful being known as the Adversary. It also explores the darker sides of fairy tales and themes like exile, racism, moral ambiguities, and tragedy. Next up is Saga, which is an epic space opera blending sci-fi and fantasy, written by Brian K. Vaughan and art by Fiona Staples and published by Image. The series follows its 2 main characters, Alana, a winged soldier from the planet Landfall, and Marco, a horned warrior from Landfall's moon, Wreath. Despite their physical differences and despite their 2 races being at war with one another, they fall in love and become deserters, leading to the birth of their child Hazel, who they'll do anything to protect. So the story is told from the perspective of Hazel, the series narrator, as the 3 of them flee from bounty hunters and factions who would like to see them killed. The series isn't all doom and gloom, however, as they make allies across the way, including Isabel, a teenager who's also a ghost and who binds herself to Hazel and also acts as her babysitter. So Saga explores moments of humour, hope and love set against a backdrop of war and its impact on individuals, families and their societies. Next up, we have Rat Queens, which is a fantasy comic book series written by Curtis J. Weeb and drawn by artist Rob Upchurch, and it follows a group of female adventurers who take on a multitude of quests in the medieval town known as Palisade. Despite its typical fantasy tropes, Rat Queens has often been celebrated for its diversity, with characters in the main group of adventurers being a dwarf, an elven mage, a human ex-high priestess, a halfling, and a one-eyed transgender orc. So because of their differences, writer Curtis J. Weeb often blends elements of action, humour, and relationship building in the development of these characters. It also won a couple of awards back in the day, so an Eisner in 2014 and a GLAAD in 2015. So Rat Queens is often talked about as a favourite amongst fantasy comic book fans. And finally, in the number 1 spot, we have Descender, which is a space opera comic book written by Jeff Lemire and illustrated by Dustin Nguyen. Now, Descender is set in a universe where massive robots known as harvesters have left planets in ruins, sparking a ban on all artificial intelligence. Descender follows Tim, 21, a young android who wakes up years later to find himself hunted and feared as a dangerous relic. Joined by his loyal robot dog Bandit and the quirky mining droid Driller, Tim embarks on an epic journey across the galaxy to uncover the truth behind his creation and the power of AI. With its stunning visuals and a deep exploration of humanity, identity, and even ethical dilemmas of technology. It's a thrilling, thought-provoking ride, and still quite relevant, so this is a comic book you definitely don't want to miss out on. So what did you guys think about this list? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Are there any other comic books you would have added? Let me know in the comments below. Hit the like and subscribe for all the next videos. But for now, this is Anthony, and this has been another List of the Damned.